Welcome to the Greater Irvine Chamber Business Insights podcast series, where we address challenges and ideas for early-stage and entrepreneurial business leaders. Your host today is Dave Coffaro, President and CEO of the Greater Irvine Chamber.
Well, hello, folks, and welcome to the Greater Irvine Chamber Business Insight podcast. My name is Dave Coffaro with the Greater Irvine Chamber, and in today's episode, we're exploring innovative work taking place in the social sector. My guest is Logan Altman. He is the Chief Impact Officer at Doing Good Works. And through his work with DGW, Logan was a Greater Irvine Chamber 40 Under 40 winner in 2024, and his company was our Business of the Year in 2025. So Logan, welcome.
Dave, it's an honor and a privilege to be here with you. Thrilled.
I am too. So for starters, would you share a little bit about your background and your role as the Chief Impact Officer at Doing Good Works?
Absolutely. So, for those who are tuning in and don't know me, my name is Logan. As Dave mentioned, I've had the privilege of being the Chief Impact Officer of Doing Good Works really since its inception back in 2015. And our whole goal is to use business as a force of good to be able to create life-changing outcomes for young people in the foster system. So as a fully for-profit social enterprise and a registered public benefit corporation, our goal and mission has always been to use business as a force of good to be able to drive those changes within the foster system. And so our journey is a little bit unique in that my co-founders and I have no foster experience ourselves. For myself, my experience really was boiling down to some time that I spent volunteering with my church in my adolescence at a children's home, where one distinct moment for me was we were wrapping presents to be able to give to some of the younger kids in the home. And I remember handing those presents out, but noticed that their facial expressions weren't really filled with joy and gratitude. It was more of just some stark thank yous, and off they went. And for me, someone a little bit more naive, I thought, man, if I'm receiving a gift, I would be ecstatic. And it really didn't click for myself until later on, when I read a letter from someone in the foster system that was to Santa that said, "Dear Santa, my name is X, Y, and Z, and instead of presents this year, I really want a family." And when I read that, it kind of clicked because it brought me back to when I was handing those presents out as to why those individuals weren't really excited about the presents, because that wasn't something that they were truly longing for. They wanted family, they wanted community. So that was a little bit of where I started to understand, what was going on in the system may be a bigger issue. And if you fast forward about 10 years later, I met my co-founders after me, spending a good 10 plus years in the branding world, who also had a desire to see the foster system changed. My CEO, Scott, his wife volunteers as a court-appointed special advocate here in Orange, advocating on behalf of young people as a full volunteer. And when he had first seen how she was on the phone, feeling frustrations as to what that navigation looked like, he started to ask her, what are the statistics for somebody that's been in the system? What are the outcomes? And when he started to hear about the dismal incarceration rates, the very low graduation rates, he said, from a business perspective, if we were all operating our businesses with that level of output for our constituents, we would be out of a job. We'd be out of business. And there's got to be a way that we could figure out how to address that. And so his mind was starting to churn. And then lastly, my other co-founder, our COO, Jordan, was adopted at a young age and was very blessed with a wonderful family. And when he was at Rollins College on the East Coast, getting his undergrad in economics, he was approached by a young gal that was pushing a carriage on campus and said, "Hi, Jordan." And his initial thought was, "Oh my goodness, who's this young gal with a baby?" But she said, "You don't know me, but I'm actually your sister, your real sister. And I was in foster care and I made it a mission to meet you. And you have other siblings." And for him, it was more of this shock of, I had a wonderful life growing up, but in hearing from what my sister's experience was like, it was a completely different trajectory. And so everybody had a vicarious experience with someone in the system, but not having it within themselves, and decided we need to figure out a way to use business to start to create some different outcomes, because everybody came from a different background. So when we began in 2015, our iteration looked like a for-profit entity wanting to figure out a way to fund it ourselves and not have to be a nonprofit fighting for those incredible grants and donation dollars, but in a way that would create bettering outcomes specific for an employment side of things for young people in the system. And how we landed on the promotional and advertising world was we were sitting over at the corner bakery at the Irvine Spectrum, which is now Sephora, and did some research and saw it was a $28 billion industry that everybody can participate in. You need merchandise, you need to promote your business or your nonprofit. If we could offset a portion of that revenue to then go back into funding employment opportunities for young people, then everybody could play a role in that social impact. And so that was our marching orders. And Dave, when I say it was so fun because we started as a staffing agency and got so many young people jobs, I would be lying and saying it wasn't an absolute blast. But when we started to see those same young people coming back to our workshop saying, "Hey, I thank you for the job I had last week, but I need a new job," and it was not an anomaly, we started to ask the questions of what was going on. And there were little barriers like, I just couldn't get to my job anymore, so I quit. Or I was 3 minutes late and I just didn't feel comfortable walking in the door, so I wanted a fresh start. Well, Dave, that's where we realized, oh my gosh, there's a bigger issue at play, and we need to figure out how we address the issue of fight, flight, or freeze within somebody that's been in the system, to help them break down that barrier of being able to keep an employable job. And that's where we reworked our model. And now 10 years later, it's been such a blast because we've been able to support over 1,000 businesses, so many here in Irvine. We've been, as you mentioned, blessed to receive some incredible accolades, but we've learned about how to properly support those impacted by the foster system in what is now our Foster Greatness Initiative, which we'll get into in a little bit. So that's just a little bit of the background and our why within Doing Good Works.
I love that your why is sparked by passion, seeing a need, addressing the need, and turning that into an enterprise, which is really what business is all about. In my view, I don't make a distinction between for profit and nonprofit. It's
Mm,
business. And
yeah.
successful businesses always address a need. And the way that you've described that in your story is so powerful. Let's talk about the big picture. What is a social enterprise? Because that was a term I used at the beginning of this conversation. And how does it differ from a traditional for profit or nonprofit organization?
Dave, that's a really great question because they both have the word enterprise in them. The nice thing about a social enterprise is it can be set up as a normal S Corp or a C Corp, as an LLC. There isn't anything specific within the state of California or wherever you're at to register as a social enterprise. What that helps is your organization to focus on using your for profit business, whether it's products or services, to support both the people and the planet, whatever you as an organization are passionate in. And we've been blessed in Irvine with so many wonderful other social enterprises like Working Wardrobes or Goodwill of Orange County. Those are incredible organizations that are using some of the goods and services that they offer to support causes near and dear to them. And for us, it's a way for us to continue to show businesses how their everyday purchases can support bettering outcomes both locally here in Irvine and beyond. So what's so special about it is it's just a way of thinking. The social enterprise aspect is how can I show our internal stakeholders and those that we serve that we're using our business plan to make a better tomorrow. And that's the beautiful thing about what we get to do is folks understand that their CSR and ESG dollars when they're purchasing their merch can now look at creating bettering outcomes just from a vicarious purchase. And the nice thing about social enterprise, Dave, is it's a fairly newer concept, but it is taking off because of how easy it is to set up that internal guideline. As we'll talk about in a minute about being a registered public benefit corporation, as a social enterprise, anybody truly can be if they set up the opportunity to use their goods and services to create bettering social outcomes for anything that they deem they want to focus on.
I want to make sure I'm interpreting this right. So, when we think about any type of a business, we always think about the various stakeholders. You think about those you serve, about those that own the company, and about the community. And what it
Yeah,
sounds like is this is a formalized approach to engaging in community benefits beyond just
exactly.
making a profit.
That's
So,
exactly right.
so you use the term a registered benefit corporation, and that's what your organization is. For folks who might not be familiar with it, would you explain what that means and why does it matter?
And so because we're unique in that we are both a social enterprise and we incorporated as a registered public benefit corporation in the state of California, what that does is it gives us and the constituents, including our buyers and those that work alongside us, the added layer of security in knowing that we have a legal obligation to be supporting the impact that we are given. And so, a social enterprise, there isn't a need for you to register any differently than you would a normal S corp or a C corp. But with a registered benefit corporation, you now have that legal obligation within your designated state to show the impact of the business, not simply on the profit, but also on the society and the environment. So what does that do? It creates an added layer of trust because you can really avoid the greenwashing and avoid some of the non uh, I guess you could almost say traditional jargon of what a socially conscious business is, because you have a legal obligation each and every year to show the direct impact that's being made. So, groups like Tom's Shoes or Ben and Jerry's, those are examples of registered public benefit corporations where at the end of the year in their impact reports, they not only have to report to their shareholders, but they have to report to their states exactly how much was reinvested back into supporting the causes that you care so deeply about. It adds a layer of transparency because you can't hide behind that. You have to state exactly what's being done. And what that's done for us in this industry, where we've got a very commodity based type of industry in the promotional products and ad spend, is it typically is very hit with greenwashing. You see a lot of that out there. You don't really know as a consumer if it truly is recycled or what the SDS reports look like. When you're operating with a registered public benefit corporation, you feel, oh my gosh, they've taken that extra layer of legality and understanding and saying what we're doing is transparent in creating a difference for both the people and the planet. So you can be both. You can be one or the other, but if you're a social enterprise and you're not legally set up as a registered benefit corporation, you cannot call yourself a registered public benefit corporation. So, and we are very fortunate we are actually one of the very few in the state of California to be incorporated as both. And we made that a model from the very beginning, that we were going to be a benefit corporation, and knowing our purposeful profits were going to create and transform the lives of individuals in the foster system. And from day one, we wanted to be transparent about what that looked like. So there is a strong distinction, and it's never too late. You can always reincorporate within the state that you're in, but boy, does it add that extra layer of trust for both your internal constituents and those that you serve.
You are really committed when you make that designation because you're saying we
Yes.
want everybody to be able to see we really mean it. That's
Yes.
wonderful. So with some businesses, social responsibility is more of a tagline. You use the term greenwashing. We hear similar terms, but it's more of that, or it's a single event. We did our beach cleanup day, or we did our thing, whatever that thing is. One of my mentors, Peter Drucker, believed that we can do well by doing good. And I love that term from him. And that social impact is most meaningful when it's baked into the company's core operating strategy. It's not a separate thing, it's part of the thing. So, how do you see this concept of doing well by doing good coming to life in the business world?
Dave, like your mentor, someone very near and dear to myself, Richard Ward, who runs Success with Purpose, puts it beautifully that philanthropy is for everybody. You don't have to be a massive organization or a Fortune 500 company CEO to instill philanthropy and make a difference. Simply through the way that you operate as a business, how you treat your employees, how you focus on doing right, as I mentioned, by people and planet, all go towards how your organization can do good. And at the end of the day, you will reap the benefits from that. Dave, the statistics are clear. The generations like myself, millennials or the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas, the folks that are moving into key decision-making roles are demanding that the organizations that they represent are truly caring about causes that are near and dear to the employee base. And if I'm a consumer, I'm caring more now than ever that the businesses, the brands, the products that I'm representing are equally as committed to creating a better outcome for tomorrow. So by building in that doing well by doing good, by focusing on how that mentality comes throughout the entire organization is so important. And there's ways that you can focus on that by giving your employees the opportunity to go out and serve what they care about. At Doing Good Works, we have a 10-20-30 model where 20% of all of our employees' time is allocated to spend in the community. Whether you're serving at South County Outreach or you're out volunteering at a church, whatever you're passionate about, go out and do the good that's in the community that you want to see. And what that does is it empowers the individual to feel like I can be in a level of philanthropy and corporate social responsibility that for the longest time was only attainable by being a very high level C-suite executive or writing a large corporate check to a nonprofit or giving a grant on behalf of somebody. And those are all incredibly valuable. But what that does is it gives the power back to the individual to say that, my gosh, I am empowered to know that I can go out and make a difference, that philanthropy is for all. And the more that we can start to ingrain that in our culture, in our benefits and how we operate as a community, we're going to see a high level of business ROI because you have a higher productivity within your workforce. And you've got your constituents and your customers excited to engage with you. These your entire teams are showcasing what it means to be able to do good for the people and planet.
You said 20% of your team members' time is spent out doing their good work in the
That's
community.
it.
And that is truly a big commitment because you're saying out of every 5 days in the work week, we get four of them, you get one of them. That says that
Right.
you really are committed to this. So that brings a question. How does the company define success? What does success look like for you, for your company?
That is a two-pronged approach, Dave, because in theory, we have two different customers. We've got our business customers that we have to ensure that our enterprise, our social enterprise, has to be as good, if not better, than the rest of the other organizations that are out there, that you are going to be able to have an exceptional buying experience, that you're going to get the products and services that you were requesting on time and on budget. So that enterprise aspect has to be there. But then our other customers are the individuals that we serve from a mission side, from those impacted by the foster system. And I would be lying if I didn't say over the last 10 years, we didn't have a lot of failures. As I began this conversation with the first iteration of being a staffing agency, we were failing those that aged out of the system because we weren't diving into what the actual problem was preventing somebody from holding employment. So from a success standpoint, we then had to redefine our entire shift about focusing on two very critical components on the mission side. And that's resources in an easy aspect to be able to get and being a part of a caring community that you never age out of. And we'll get into the innovation side in a minute. But from our perspective, success looked like how do we break the cycles for those that are constantly in that cycle of employment? How do we break the cycles for those in food insecurity? And what do we do to ensure that folks are in a constant community able to be accessing resources and be in a community with other lived experience members that they never have to age out of. So business, and I tell so many social enterprises that we consult on, your enterprise needs to be as good, if not better, than the other ones. If you're trying to be a social enterprise coffee shop, you have to be able to compete with the Starbuckses or the Hidden Houses, because at the end of the day, your mission can only go so far. You have to do right by the enterprise. So for us, and our accolades have been such a blessing because it's really reinforced that the mission has worked in using business as a force of good. And we pride ourselves in simply just being an organization that wants to be your marketing wing. But at the end of the day, if we're not supporting a good enterprise and we are not supporting the foster community in a way that's creating tangible outcomes, then we're failing both models. And that's why we spend 20% of our time out in the community because, Dave, so many of our team members have been CASAs now and are advocating on behalf of young people in the work week and need to be able to go into court and be able to say, I'm here to support this person. And they will learn what are some of the stop gaps that are preventing this person from going that we can bring back and take in and start to work through best practices. So it is a two-pronged approach, but it's one that
Yeah.
keeps us all
Yeah.
accountable and making sure our business and mission are thriving.
These themes are so applicable to any type of organization, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Know what success looks like, be agile. And when something doesn't work, because every entrepreneur has failures. That's just the nature of what we do. But being agile enough to say, okay, our vision doesn't necessarily change, but our activities may. So that leads to the innovation question. And here in Irvine and Orange County, we're at the center of this amazing medtech hub world, innovation world. And we often think about innovation in the context of things like AI or new medtech devices, improving the quality of life. How do you see innovation demonstrating in terms of the social sector? And how does it sort of play out in doing good works?
You touch on a couple different things because we are in that artificial intelligence world. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how quickly organizations can adapt to that change. And for us, we've been very blessed to be able to be in amongst a community here in Irvine of so many wonderful players that are leading the charge in the way of innovation from medtech and from AI. But we're using it a little bit differently because within the foster system, we realized that in order for us to scale and be able to support what was an understanding that this foster epidemic is not specific to Southern California, that it is not even specific to the United States, it's a global problem. We said if we want to be able to support true generational outcomes on scale, we need to leverage technology in a way that helps to create resources and community wherever individuals are at on really any device. And so we tried to do our research a couple of years ago to see if there was anything built in terms of platforms and capabilities to be able to meet those demands that we had. And there wasn't. And so, Dave, we created it. And so that's what our current iteration within our mission side is called Foster Greatness. I'm super excited to share that it is the largest online collective of individuals with lived experience in the nation, gathering critical resources and being part of a community that they never age out of. So the way that we operate is it's available on any iPhone or Android, any operating system. You can go online, be a part of the community, you sign up, you never age out. But whether you're here in Irvine or you're in Anchorage, Alaska, you can type in your zip code and the specific need that you have. And we've got a vetted list of community partners in the local regions that will give you the hours of operations, who to be able to contact. And then from there, we take our own internal resource specialists, individuals with lived experience that have gone through extensive training to help you as a lived experience community member navigate what that looks like. And so, Dave, what that's done is it's allowed us to scale into every aspect in every state here in the United States. And it's given folks the opportunity to tap into resources that they might have felt discouraged because they tried to Google and they weren't getting the answers.
Right.
And then when we talk about the uniquenesses of the federal and state funding situations we're dealing with right now, we've also built in our community resource app the opportunity for folks to put in their demographic, what they make, where they're from, and then get access to free resources at a federal and state level that they didn't know that was applicable to them, and then be able to help navigate what those application processes look like. And that just creates this unique opportunity to say, from someone in the system that has had adverse experiences and already has trouble navigating things on their own, I'm part of a singular community where I can go no matter where in the United States and access those critical resources. And Dave, we've scaled it to a few thousand members in such a short time. And as of right now, today, as we're recording this, we are in the UK. My CEO and my director of social impact in the UK are currently launching what is Foster Greatness United Kingdom, because we were asked by Parliament and the UK lawmakers, when they had seen what we were doing within Foster Greatness and the technology and innovation going on, saying, hey, we also have a huge problem within the outcomes of our foster network. Can you help us bring your best practices to the UK? And so we are there right now, setting everything up and getting Foster Greatness UK dialed, because as I just mentioned, this foster problem is not specific to the United States. This is a global epidemic that needs best practices and needs the opportunity for a caring community in their community and resources specific to their region. So we are so excited. And I can't wait to be able to share with everybody in the next couple of years what the global impact looks like because of the innovation that's been able to take place right here in Irvine.
Love it. Innovation taking place right here, changing the world every day. That's
That's it.
fantastic. We've got time for one more question. Here it is. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs and business leaders who are inspired by the idea of integrating purpose with profit, but they aren't sure where to start?
I can't say this enough. You are not too small to be in philanthropy. You are not, even if you're a sole proprietor, there is the opportunity to do good by whatever business line you're in, whatever nonprofit you're in, how many employees you have. Do not be handcuffed by the mindset that you need to be a certain threshold, that you have to have a certain level of business income to start to do good and integrate purpose in with profit. Start volunteering, doing kidding programs or pack out programs where you go and you support organizations that have a need. Getting involved in the community and being a part of change is just your time, your human capital, and understanding that it's going to attract the right buyers, that if you're not on that train now, you're going to be left behind. And there is no better time to start than now. That at the end of the day, that you can start to change the mindset, whether you've been in business for 50 years or you've been in business for 5 minutes, that you can start to shift the culture to thinking about how you could put purpose and profit on the same level without sacrificing your business and the bottom line, but also understand that there's a way that you are going to impact lives beyond what you had imagined. So all I can encourage for those that are out there is take that leap, realize philanthropy is for all, and start to be a part of the community that is Irvine and beyond, because there are so many doers that are currently here that are available and would dedicate such incredible time, energy, and effort to show how their organization is bringing profit and purpose together. So act now, and I can't wait to see and hear those stories for those groups that are excited to start to enact purpose and profit together.
Fantastic. Logan Altman doing great works, doing good works, but great works as well
Thank
across
you.
the planet. Thanks so much for being our guest today. Folks, thank you so much for joining in. Have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for the Greater Irvine Chamber Innovators Journey podcast. To stay informed about upcoming episodes and other important business news, please subscribe to our channel or check the Greater Irvine Chamber website and mobile app.